So if you're a landscaper, I want to warn you about installing weed barrier fabric and why you should be very careful, because you could end up underquoting and losing time and money and becoming very frustrated. So what's up? I'm Keith Kalfas with the Landscaping Employee Trap YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, hope you're doing very well. I make YouTube videos and tips about how to start a landscaping business from absolutely nothing and getting the thing off the ground, plus other funny videos. So in this video, we're talking about weed barrier fabric. Here's a landscape job. Looking at about 4,000 bucks to do everything that we're doing here, which is doing a full property trim, pulling all the weeds, redefining all the garden bed edges, trimming all the shrubs, and then removing old excess mulch, and then installing weed barrier fabric, pins, and fresh new mulch. Now I'll walk you through this and I'll talk about the weed barrier fabric in a second here, but before you install weed barrier fabric, you have to be very concise and conscious about gardening. And the reason I'm doing that is, look at the edges of this black diamond plastic edging here. Look at this. See how deep this is? We went all the way around and we go 12 to 15 inches out. I explain this to the client so they understand why they're being charged for this. We have to go from here all the way 12 to 15 inches, and we have to dig out and remove and charge for dumping. So there's a nice tapered beveled edge lip that goes nice and deep before we install the new weed barrier fabric, because you can't install it high and then just pile mulch on top of it. It has to be uniform and down. Now, with that being said, weed barrier fabric is very deceiving. You can go and measure with a measuring wheel 500 square feet of garden beds, right? But you have to get an extra, depending on how many plants there are and how many things you have to cut around. Look at this, 30 to 50% of extra fabric and pins, more than you thought you would need, because look at all these hostas. See? And I'm sorry, the hydrangeas and the hostas. All these shrubs here. This was just a different color because I had an extra roll, but it's all high quality, commercial grade, 3-ounce contractor grade weed barrier fabric. Now you might say you hate weed barrier fabric, it's worthless, it's pointless. Well, that's debatable. Now see how it's perfectly cut around all the plants and wrapped like a present in all garden beds everywhere. This takes a tremendous amount of time, and we have a pin every so many feet. Pin, 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 pin. It's fall time at the time of this video, so little leaves are falling, making it look kind of messy. Pin, pin, pin. So we lay it out in a big strip and we cut it in sections, and then we cut around it, and there was concrete in here from the, or mortar from the patio, so I had to put a pin in and bend it down. Now, so if there's 500 square feet of garden beds, you're gonna need about 750 square feet of fabric, because when you're cutting around edges and everything, you have tons of scrap, which means you have to go to Home Depot and get a big bag of contractor grade garbage bags. So you're throwing all the scrap away. We have Homer buckets with rubber mallets, and then a box of 1,000 pins, or sod staples they call it. And what we do is we create a mobile toolkit, and we work our way around the beds in a step-by-step process. So the first process is ow, ow, ow. God, I just kneed directly on a piece of wood on this mulch, and it went right perfectly into the joint in my kneecap. And I have a knee injury from when I was younger. Oh God, it's gonna be a bruise. Well, how come you don't wear knee pads, Kalfas? I have surgically installed knee pads. They were like RoboCop. Have you seen RoboCop? I had to permanent on my knees. My knees. I'm rich. I have platinum knees. Anyways, so top down. We trim all the ornamental trees, all the shrubs, to make a big mess from the top down. Shake everything off, trim it again. When it's all on the ground, then we go through and we pull all the weeds and we get all that up on the tarps and into one big dump load in the trailer. And then we haul that off to the dump. And then we go around and we shovel and rake out the old mulch. And the only reason we do that is because it shouldn't be piled around all of the plants and shrubs. If it starts getting piled up high, it's gonna suffocate all the plants. Once we get that out, if we need to, as needed, that's what it says on the quote, we do it as needed. And we have a nice grade, and we've winterized all the lilies or whatever we need to do to create space. Then we start cutting all this out. I can't walk on this because we just power washed and put new polymeric sand. But see how it's all done over there too. We're trying to do both at once. We're pressed for time. But okay, so it's all here too. See, weed barrier fabric is, I think it's 99 bucks a roll, 3 by 300. So it's 3 feet wide by 300 feet long, and then a box of 1,000 pins is it's about 50 bucks. Some places it's like $80. So you gotta measure your materials wisely. And I say that because just guess you're gonna be putting about 1 pin every square foot, right? So if you think, I could probably do this whole job with like 500 pins, and times that by 3, sucker, you're gonna need 1,500 pins. We're going on about 1,200 pins for this job, and I thought we would need 600. So I got a box of 1,000, and I already had about 100 left over, and I ended up having to get another box of pins because we're running short. And I've done this 100 times. Weed barrier fabric. We've gone through, oh shit, I left the water on over here. Damn it. It's not a big deal, it's just that the spigot's leaking and I don't want it wet all over there. I was just spritzing down all this and waiting for it to dry. So, weed barrier fabric. You should always get 1.5 times the amount that you think that you need, because you're gonna end up needing it. And then if you're short and you gotta go back to the landscape supply, you can't be knocking on your customer's door saying, oh, we made a mistake and we don't have enough weed barrier fabric. I know that I'm the perfect. No, you can't. You gotta keep your mouth shut. You eat the mistake and you just eat it. You go buy the stuff and hopefully you can make it up somewhere else and learn your lesson, right? So it's okay if you have an extra 700 pins in your storage unit, your garage where you store your stuff, or an extra roll of weed barrier fabric, or even storing a couple hundred or even thousands of dollars of extra materials, because you're gonna just keep using it on the next job. It's a longer term thought process. So it's called pay now or pay later. If you get into the habit of pay now, which is slow down when you're doing the quote, grab a measuring wheel. If you're not really good at eyeballing garden beds, measure it out. Take an extra minute to make sure you're calculating owner's profit. Whenever you do something like weed barrier fabric and pins and mulch or anything you're doing, this is just maintenance. Clock it out. How long does it really take? How many productive work hours in each day are you actually doing or delegating to be done? From that place, you can start to get really realistic. Like your setup and breakdown time. How long does it take you to set up a job and get going? How long is your lunch? How long to break down? So everything always takes, with Murphy's Law, 30 to 50% longer. So what I'm saying is you're not charging the customer for your mistakes. You're just quoting and charging properly to buy yourself the time, because that's all you're doing is selling time. You're buying yourself the time to actually do a good job. I'll tell you one thing, if you're undercharging, because maybe you haven't done it 100 times before, so you can't even help the fact that you keep undercharging and making these mistakes. But what happens if you undercharge and you get an anxiety? Now you're rushing, and if you're rushing, you're an anxiety, then you're rushing, and it's like now you're tripping over yourself, and you might feel the urge to cut corners. And cutting the corner, on a simple explanation, would be like you need 10 yards of mulch and you only ordered 8 because you only quoted for 8, so you only ordered 8, and now you're trying to make it work. You're trying to spread it real thin, and you're feeling real bad. So the amount of time it takes you just to go back to the landscape supply to go get 2 more yards of mulch on your dollar in your time is actually costing you, you know, quantified 4 times the amount. So you're better off just getting a little extra and charging a little more. And then if you quantify that over time, you're actually getting ahead. That's how you get ahead in this business, from what I learned, is by being very conscious about what you're doing and trying to be as smart as possible about every decision you make, and then also playing the long game, and not being afraid to say no. Not being afraid to say no, even if it's to yourself. So let's say you quote $1,000 to do a job, and the customer goes, how about I give you 700? Will you do it for 700? And then you think about it, you go, oh, if you might really need the work, right? What if you really need the work? You go, I'll do it for 700. Okay, so what if you need to make a 50% gross profit margin to make it work? Let's say the job is $500, it's going to cost you an overhead to do it, and you need to make a 50% gross profit margin. It means you got to charge $1,000. And then after personal taxes and all that, how much you're going to make? What if you make 400 off of it? Right? Well, if the customer says 700 and you say yes, then still after taxes and everything, what are you going to do, a whole job and make $100? That money is coming, that discount, after you gave a customer a quote, that discount that they want is coming directly off of your profit. Nowhere else. It's coming directly out of your pocket. Now when you're in anxiety, rushing and upset and mad at yourself because you literally are doing a job for peanuts, you have nobody to blame but yourself, right? But it's not fair. It's not fair. Well, nobody said life is fair. And you have to have a reason why. If you say, hey, I'd love to give you a discount, but you know, this costs this much, this costs, and wu-wei verbal techniques, if you just thoroughly explain to the customer and you show it to them in line items on your contract or your proposal, and you explain why everything costs what it does, and then you tell them and reassure them and say, hey, I've been doing this a long time and I'm going to do it the right way. That's why it costs what it costs, because I'm not going to cut corners. I'm going to make sure that your property is going to be done the right way. Now, if I charge you less, then I'm going to be rushing, and if I'm rushing, then I'll feel anxious, and I don't want to miss anything, I don't want to trip anything. So is it yes or no? I could take $50 off. Does that work for you? You know, but I can't do any more than that. And then if you just stick to your guns with that, and you start to do that with more and more things, you'll begin to notice one thing, and that's that more opportunities will start to flow into your life and into your business at higher prices, at better profit margins. The opposite happens, right? You feel like you're going down and you're losing work, but what happens is when you stand your ground and you stick to your guns, then people start to respect you, because they're just testing your integrity to see if you're real, if you really stand behind your work, if you really know what your pricing is, right? And if you're strong with that, then that actually increases their confidence in wanting to hire you, because now you know your business better than they do, and when they feel that, it's authentic. And you know what? They might even hire you for $500 more than the other guy because you're confident in what you're doing. Just let that sink in for a minute. What's up? It's Keith with KeithKalfas.com. If you got value from this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, bam, and then tap the notification bell so you can get notified whenever I upload a video. If you like this video, you're gonna love my mulch pricing video, how to price mulch, and I'll put the link either up here or right below. Check out